more smoother at it. You know, I haven't played this game in probably 5 years, so I refreshed myself with the rules, but it goes a while. So the electronic control jamming has lasting effects, and the last hex that it was at before it exits the board is where the lasting effects take place from. So I put this marker here, EC, and I'll get more in about it later, how it's 10 hexes from the board. But then the Soviet one, I have an EC marker there also, but that is not correct. That electronic aircraft was forced to abort. Therefore, he was not on the board. So the Russians do not have electronic jamming, but my bad. The pack, turn 2. I'll come back after the preparations, and then both sides do the preparations. Russians first, and then we do the maneuver phase of the Soviets. So the movement phase, the 6 guards, 18 motorized came on. Everybody used strategic movement, so we can't move next to this unit. That's why they stopped here. And I think that's about the maximum distance. Maybe they could have gone a little more. So I think it was a good idea to set up the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment right here. It blocks anybody else from coming in. The 18th, I kept a little more to the left here, just to keep the Americans honest. They can't just pull everybody over like this. They're going to have to watch this because they don't know which way this one is going, the 18th. And we do set up for a combat here. There's one disruption on the 2nd, the Charlie Battalion, the 2nd Cavalry Regiment right there. And I put these tanks around it. Now, one of the decisions that is a issue in this game is the Soviets get to move their artillery. They will fire it, then they will move it. Next turn, fire it. The Americans have to make a decision here. They are either going to defend that battalion, and then they're stuck in place, and then the Soviets get to move on them, or they get in a better position and withdraw. So some players, people I've noticed, don't like this role because if they stay there and fire, they're flipped and they're subject to attack, or they have to move and not be used for, you know, non-phase in indirect fire or counter battery. But I usually just, you know, I just follow these rules. I don't change anything, and I usually will just back it up, put it in a position where I want, and just use it for my own indirect fire during my turn. At this point, what I make that rule that if there's no more fighting units in a regiment, the headquarters and supply have to be removed because there's no overrun in the game, and then they're just not going to hold off a tank battalion. So keep that in mind. But other than that, you know, I'm just going to use the reserve forces here to defend this area. You'd be amazed how well we can defend a city, the wooded area, and behind this river using what's coming up and holding on until the Germans get there. So no time to panic. There's nothing to panic, even though there's nothing stopping them across this open ground. Nothing but NATO Air Force, the United States Air Force. So let's get the attack done. So here is the maneuver combat. And I am going to go ahead and put all artillery on him. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just making sure he was in range. So they're all in range. Every single artillery unit is going to fire on that. Now he announces, is he going to counter battery and he can stop one of those for firing? Or is he going to fire on one of these tanks? He can hit an artillery unit right here for counter battery. He can stay there and help, or he backs up, you know, in his maneuver phase, he backs up and we use him in the offensive role more than the defensive role here. So that's the decision for the Americans. And I really like the fact that I could probably keep this tank from attacking. Oh, that one's in the woods. This one, because it's in the open. and in range. I mean, if he gets another disruption on this, the zone of control is gone and they're just going to move around him and into this position. But at this point, I need these tanks to cover this line to get the backup going, right? This is the next line of defense. So, I mean, the artillery gun does have a zone of control dot, and it's going to get in a tank battle, which you really don't like to do, but that's just me how, we have to do it. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and I'll come back after I do the battle. This guy's going to fire on that tank. All this artillery is going to fire on that tank. Now, okay. So we're going to have 3, 6, 9, 12. You turn them over because they're all going to fire. Now the one that has a circle on it means it can only fire once a day. And then we put a fired marker on it because you can actually turn them over so they don't get spotted by aircraft. But this, reminds us that they have been used for the day. So we have a 12 and the defense is the B. He gets a C. -1, rover, maneuver, using attack over, then defender movement type. Okay, so we get none of that. No -1, so he's going to have an 8 and 3 is 11. So he has 11, we have a 12. It's going to be a +1 to this die roll. And we're going to use the number 1 table. And here we go. 3 at a +1. And it is a disruption. And that's all we're really looking for. We can try to kill this guy some other time, or maybe with some aircraft. 2 disruption levels negates his zone of control, and now we can just move on by him. We're going to make sure he doesn't rally him. But other than that, we're rolling. Now, the American artillery is going to go ahead and fire, because I like the position he's at. He's in a good spot. This 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment's here, for the first line of defense, and they're going to take a beating. But let's go ahead and fire on this tank like we wanted. And he has a 3 to a 4. That is actually a -1. See what he gets? And he gets a 3 at a -1. And it is defender disrupted. So we took this out of the fight. You can't shoot when you have a disruption. And that's what we're looking for. Now we knock this down. Now he is an 11, and it's only a 10 now, so it's back to a -1. Oh, we get a 2 that time. And the 2 says, at a -1, D1. Here now we know the white marker is a disruption 3, and so I will leave them on the bottom. So anyways, we disrupted that by 3 times. That maneuver combat is done. That's all the Russians have for the turn. We will now move the Americans, and I'll come back. And again, this group right here is all going to come in this area, because we're going to help the Germans in this area with this fight. This group here has got to run across somewhere in this area. We got to make sure the 6 Guards does not cross into this area. So maybe I'll get in a battle right here. First shot with him, because I would like to hold that town so he doesn't get across. I don't think I can get anybody else there. It'd be nice. I can probably put this right here, the anti-tank gun. We need to just protect this area. So this I forgot to turn over in the maneuver, right in the check phase. You actually do it right before their turn, so I'm just going to turn it over now. Okay, so yeah, we don't do none of that yet, actually. Okay, we put a couple units here defending, back it up by the artillery. Yeah, I think I'm going to take this unit, shift it here, and we do have maybe a couple more here that I'm going to bring in. The armor division, I think, is going to go straight up here because we got some coming in on the side now. We're going to head in here as fast as we can. So we just need to slow down the 6. If he decides to walk over here, I've got nothing here. You know, instead of sending this group to Beirut, I might have to put him in the woods right here to hold this line. I don't know, we'll see. In the American turn, I was able to pull the mechanized units into this city. That was my first concern, to help protect this. And as far as the helicopters went, I only moved them 10 hexes, but they can also use strategic movement and move up to triple their movement. So they went from here to here on the first turn. So I didn't show that, but I moved them there, and then from here, they're over here supporting this area. So the city being protected from the 51st Division was my first priority. Then I moved the other units up, trying to protect this area here. I can only get so many units here. The anti-tank battalion was in a good spot right here. It's up in elevation, and it can shoot 2 across this river. So I like that spot. I was able to reach 1 engineer to this spot here. I moved this cavalry battalion that was here. I just backed it up here. So he's protecting this area here along these roads. So it's a pretty solid defense, I think, there. The Soviets aren't going to get very far. I had to move this mechanized. He moved 6 into this town. I thought, okay, if I protect this town, I'm going to protect this crossing here. And of course, we're in a zone of control, so we have to do combat right there. That's the only combat I have. Everybody else moves strategic movement. So the mechanized is coming up the road. We have to watch what these divisions are doing. So I'm behind the river there. And then I have the 1st Division, Armor Division, coming in on the side here, because a lot of them came in from this side. So they're going to come in and they're going to be pushing against the Soviets on this side. So we do have one. Now, we do have our long-range artillery. Most of them I'm still moving in position. You can see they're flipped because they can't move and fire at the same time, the long-range ones here. But I do have one ready to go. Where was he? He's right here. So this one's ready to fire, but I like to use him more in counter battery roles. I'm not going to fire on this tank. You know, I'm just going to let this battle take place and not really worry about it. When he goes to attack, I like to use these long-range artilleries to try to disrupt his artillery. So that's what I like to use those for. So that's the only attack. So we have a 4, he has a 5. So that is a -2. And let's see what we get. And it's a 3. My bad, it's a 4 to a 5, not a 6, so it's -1 and a 3. And we have a disruption on the Soviets. Now, of course, the Soviets, they use strategic movement too, so all their artillery guns cannot use strategic movement and fire, so the artillery is turned over there. So that's it. We're still moving into position. We're going to start getting engaged now, and the strategic movement's pretty much done. And we are going to go to the air phase. I made one change to the Soviet air phase. I turned an Su-24 into electronic aircraft. So the Soviets have 2. I mean, there's really no other way to do it. So it's turned face up right here, and you can see that there's another plane with it. That's an escort. You don't have to turn it up, so they don't know what it is. But anyways, he's jamming. The Americans come back in with electronic control, same thing. The jamming starts.
Now, as the Soviet air fly toward the Hawk systems, you're figuring, well, these are probably wild weasels, so I don't shoot right away. And then you'll see that the ground air support is attacking that battalion that's already got 3 disruptions on it, so I'm not using the Hawk systems to hit those right now.
See what happens. And we have 2 MiG-27s. B factors are a 6. Of course, this is going to be 11. Oh, they're on the road, so they don't get that. They can ignore the terrain, so it's really only an 8. So there's 6. And air support, close air support to ground, it's going to be table 1. And it is going to be a -2 on the differential. And a 6 is going to be a Tac Air, so none of that takes place. That's done. Now that I can see he's probably heading toward this area, we're going to go ahead and take some shots. I think I'm going to open up with close in jamming. Their range is 1/3, so they only have a 5 hex range. So there's no shooting yet. Okay, so the electronic jamming means there's no radar homing missile shots, and there's no +1 for the rear attack. So it's round 3. We're going to put this, we're going to hit that. We have a 3, and that is definitely on the worst table we have. I'm just looking for like a 1, and that's a 2. Not bad. That's a -3 or left, and both are demoralized. Well, what we're going to play is, so I don't have to do a bunch of rolls, die rolling, is all these units are equipped with enough 50 cals to shoot at low-flying aircraft coming over. So we decided to, instead of rolling the dice, because they said, okay, roll the dice every time you fly over a unit, it's one way to do it, and every one you get, you make them abort. But this one, we just make the aircraft get affected by adverse rolls. So this one definitely was. It's why I have the escort with it. And the escort takes a 1. Okay, so there is a half a flight loss to the escort. Now let's fire the 2 air units. We want to fire at this. Of course, it's the Wild Weasel. And the Wild Weasels get a +4. So we have a 6 plus 4 is 10. And you will be defensive 2, +2 for the woods. You'll have a 4, so it is a +6 out of 5. And we have 2 disruptions. And then this one has the same thing on this one, 6. And we get a 3 on that one. And that's a D3. Now a question does arise. These guns' radars were on, but now that they're damaged, the radar does go off immediately. Okay, so that's the way I play it. Radar's done, they're shut down because they're damaged now. And they're flipped to their other side. So those 2 Wild Weasels have done their job right there. And I think that's all the other. Let's finish these moves. on the fourth air round. Now the wild weasels can still attack for regular arm, and I want to go after this one. This one will be able to hit 5 because I think I still have time. So we go 1, 2, 3. You have to be down a straight row of hexes. You can be 10 away, but I'm already that far. This one's going to go 1. Now nobody can shoot at this still. 2. You can take that shot though. So it's 4, but you have to -2 because of the jamming. So you have a 2 air defense. I think you're going against the bees, right? And they get their BF factor. So it's a 2. So it's a 2 to a 2. Oh, and he gets a 2. And we do have a disruption. Let's roll for the depletion. And he is depleted. These are now going to fly off. These guys will not catch them. Wild weasels are done. I'm not, now that the Americans are getting too close, I'm not going to come in and try to get another hawk system here. I don't like getting my wild weasels shot down. Even though it was a pretty effective bombing run, I did lose 2 half flights of the jets. So half flights are not allowed to come back in. Not until the end of the day do they get repaired. So they're out for the rest of the turns for day 1. So basically I'm leaving these 3 on. Obviously they're fighters. He has all these. He's going to come in and do some bombing runs. And we'll double check with their forward air controllers here. And I have a couple doing the air interdiction. Remember I ran the reconnaissance in this area. They're going to go to that spot and then they can just attack whatever they can see from that spot. Okay. That's it for the Americans, except we are going to take a wild weasel shot right here. And it's directly down the line. We're going to hit this radar gun right here. He is not in the woods. It's a 2. And we have a 4. And it's your A factor, so it's 4 plus 2 to the dice. And it's a 4. 1. And that wild weasel will stay up. Well, actually, you're supposed to signify he's not done. You can turn them over. Anybody staying up means they've been used. So that's it. Another air round. So I just finished the air round because I think you've seen enough and seen how it worked. I ran the air interdiction planes, 2 of them, into this area, and we destroyed one of the tanks here, and the other one actually got aborted by an AA shot, and they were the gunshots because the other air interdiction was coming in this way, and this gun one, you have to roll a 1. It rolled a 1. Well, my other wild weasel had taken out an AA gun, and then this one rolled the 1 to abort that one, and it got a 1. So this one rolled 2 1s in a row and aborted some aircraft. Now, a couple things I learned here in turn 2, is
The Soviet electronic control aircraft.
I ran them back up this way up the board, because as the air rounds are going and the American planes are coming up here, for them to move 3 hexes and get off this edge of the board would take 8 turns, because it was like 24 hexes from here. So as long as I didn't leave the board but I ran up here, the American planes had to turn around and get back off the board. So I brought the Russian electronic air control aircraft right here for the last, until he on the 18th turn air round, then he just left the board. So that's why that's a Russian electronic control, his last spot, so he's still jamming. And then the American, seeing how in the normal game you'd be able to be 10 hexes from the board, and then when you leave it was the last spot you were at, and that's where he can get his electronic control. So I do the same thing, 10 hexes from the exit, his last spot, that's where we leave. So the American electronic control jamming is from this hex. So I'll start doing that. I'll keep the Russian electronic control aircraft on the board. So what I might have to start doing with the Americans is just take some cheaper aircraft and weaker ones and just chase the electronic control until it leaves the board. And then if you're not off the board by the round 20, they crash, basically run out of fuel. And I might just do that if I really want the Russian electronic air control aircraft off the board. So I might have to do that.